Why do people work? It seems like it's an obvious question. You have to make a living. But I'm suspecting that none of you would answer the question, why do you work, by saying, I have to make a living. Of course you have to make a living, but there's more to work than just making a living. People want to be engaged by their work. They want actually to feel like a significant part of themselves is involved when they show up at work every day. They want to be challenged, so they can't just mail it in. They actually want obstacles posed for them that they can overcome. They want autonomy. They want, to a large degree, to be in control of what happens in the workday, to make their own decisions about what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. People want to get good at whatever it is they're doing. They want to feel a sense of accomplishment, a sense of mastery. People want social engagement. They want to feel respected by their colleagues and their supervisors, and they want to respect their colleagues and their supervisors. And most important, I think, people want work that means something. By and large, if you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, whose life did I improve yesterday, you're doing, and come up with an answer other than my life, your work is meaningful. For the overwhelming majority of people in the world, work has few or none of these characteristics. Why is it that as industrialization developed, it created a model for business in which opportunities for these non-material benefits were systematically excluded from the workplace? Workers who do the kind of work that most workers have to do, whether they're in factories or in fast food restaurants or in order fulfillment centers or in call centers or indeed in law firms, classrooms, clinics, and offices, people who do work that doesn't have these characteristics do it for pay. When you ask these people, why do you work, the answer is, I work for a paycheck. Try as they might to find meaning and engagement and autonomy and challenge in the work that they do, the work situation they're in defeats them. The Gallup organization, you probably know this, polls people around the world about their attitudes toward work on an annual basis. The last survey that I saw, which was a few years ago, they surveyed 25 million employees in 190 different countries. Big sample. And here's what they found. They found 13% of employees are engaged by their jobs, 63% are not engaged, and 24% are actively disengaged. The not engaged people are mailing it in. The disengaged people actively loathe where they spend half of their waking lives. And the question is, why is it? If the last slide told you stuff that's obvious, why is it that for 90% of people in the world, they spend half their waking lives in places they don't want to be, doing things they don't want to do? This is a puzzle. And it's an even bigger puzzle when you appreciate that work that has the attributes that make it worth doing actually improves the profitability of the companies. So why is it that companies are leaving money on the table by constructing workplaces that are loathsome and soul-deadening instead of workplaces that people are eager to get to? This is a puzzle, and I'm going to explain it to you. Incentivizing behavior that would occur without the incentive weakens rather than strengthening the power of the behavior. Incentivizing performance is almost certainly the worst way to get what you really want from people. It's what you resort to when you feel like you have no other tools at your disposal. And it's not simply that these incentives don't work, they actually have negative effects with regard to what your long-term objectives are. So it matters not only what people do, but why they do it. And incentivizing performance is the worst reason for people to do. Extrinsically motivated behavior is work. Intrinsically motivated behavior is play. Extrinsically motivated behavior is all about the goals. Intrinsically motivated behavior is all about the journey. right? You've all heard the slogan, it's not the destination, it's the journey, not the destination. Yes? It's ridiculous. It is the journey and the destination, and that's what's wrong with this distinction. If you're a serious gardener and you want to produce a beautiful garden in your yard, you also want it to be a garden that is fruitful. You don't just dig holes in the dirt. You want plants to grow. You want the plants to bear fruit. You want to pluck the fruit. You want the fruit to taste like food rather than like plastic. You have both a desire to be the gardener and the desire to reap the benefits of being a good gardener. If you're a painter, you want to produce your own creative works of art on a canvas. You wouldn't hire somebody else to do it for you because you want to be involved in the process. But nor would you throw paint on a canvas and then burn the canvas. You care about the results. And most of you can probably attest, there's a lot that you do in pursuit of excellence that ain't fun. My point is that intrinsically motivated behavior is not behavior where we don't care about consequences. We do. What makes it distinctive is that there is an intimate connection between the means and the end. We care about the consequence, finishing the Ironman in one piece. We also care about how we achieve that consequence by us being the ones who do it. We care about the consequence, a beautiful work of art. We also care about the journey to that consequence, being the one who produced that beautiful work of art. And I think this is an important thing to bear in mind because what happens when you think about intrinsically motivated behavior as play and extrinsically motivated behavior as work is you essentially consign all of the things that intrinsically motivated people into the category of frivolous activities not worth the time and attention of people who run businesses. If it's play, you can do it in your spare time. It's just a hobby. And I think if instead you think about the connection between the motives and the means and the end, this intimate connection between the means and the end, you make the pursuit of intrinsically motivated behavior on the part of the workforce serious, not frivolous. So it's a distinction I think it's important to bear in mind. It is not, in other words, hard to remind people that what they do has a real purpose. You can't take it for granted. You can't hide it under a barrel. When you remind people that what they do has a purpose, that what they do is making somebody else's life better, they can't wait to do the job as well as they possibly can. So the hopeful lesson here is that it needn't take a lot to turn bad work into good work. The worst thing about using incentives is that in using an incentive system is in effect communicating to your workforce that you don't trust them. You don't trust them to do the right thing because it's the right thing. The only way they're going to do the right thing is if you make it worth their while. I think it's hard to overestimate how demoralizing it is to work in a place where you're just showered with evidence that you are not trusted and respected. And there's no better way to communicate a lack of trust and a lack of respect than by introducing an incentive system to get people to do what they ought to be doing without an incentive system. So it's an incredibly destructive way to organize work. And even if people end up working harder, they're not going to end up working better, and they're certainly not going to end up feeling satisfied with the work they've done at the end of the day. It isn't so much what you do, although being challenged and having autonomy matter. It's really much more about why you do it. And if you're inspired by the what doesn't matter so much. And if you're not inspired by the why, again, the what doesn't matter so much. Eventually, any what, no matter how sexy and exciting it may seem, gets to feel old and stale, unless you're convinced that there's a good reason to be doing the things that you're doing. Good workplaces enable people to do good work. Their customers and clients will benefit, as will their employers. Second, when people do work they value, it makes them happy. It enhances their well-being, much more than the material benefits that come from incentive schemes that employers substitute for good work, and incidentally, much more than wellness programs, I believe. Why wouldn't we want to design a workplace that enables its inhabitants to get real satisfaction out of the time they spend in them? We have missed this opportunity largely because of an ideology that tells us that people don't want to work. It places an enormous burden on us when we appreciate that by designing our institutions, we are also designing ourselves, the people who inhabit those institutions, at least in part. But this is a responsibility that I think we must all accept. And the first step to taking responsibility is to start asking a few questions. When it comes to the design of work, we must first ask why. What is the purpose of this work? Will the purpose of the work inspire people to do their jobs well? We must ask what. Is the product of our work something that will actually provide a benefit? Are the results of our transactions with customers positive sum, so that both sides leave the transactions better off? It'll be much easier to inspire our workforce if the answer to this question is yes. And we must ask how. Are we giving workers the freedom to use their intelligence and discretion to help solve the problems they face every workday? Are we allowing them to work without close supervision and trusting that since they want to do their jobs well, they will? I think the world of work and the world of human experience will be a very different place if we ask ourselves these questions about the work we do and the work we ask others to do. And human nature will be different too. We will enable the people who work for us to live richer lives, and everyone will benefit. Thank you.